All right. It has been a while since I posted, and I'm trying to figure out a good place to post from. Still not a good spot, but whatever. Anyway, good enough. So, the water into wine miracle and all of its chaos, in my experience, it seems like most of the time it's kind of skimmed over, which is disappointing because there's so much going on. I know that window is glaring. Too bad. uh, so let's just jump in. So my focus is totally scatterbrained today, but I really want to share this with you guys. So, setting the scene, the wedding, Mediterranean countryside, springtime. It's like late March, early April, mid March, somewhere in there. And we know that Mary is part of the crew. She's part of the planning, she's part of the making it perfect. And we know that Mary would be into making sure that the women in her family have perfect weddings, because hers wasn't, because, God showed up. And, I think that kind of factors into some of this story, let's be honest. And Mary is part of the crew, part of the behind the scenes working, she is there, she's involved. And Jesus, he's been off making his disciples, he's been doing his thing. And they find out, oh, he's back in town. Okay, well, it is Mary's son. So him and his new disciples are latecomer invite to the wedding. And they're probably expecting that these disciples would be normal disciples who would be very, well-mannered, well-educated, striving to give good impressions, because that's what other rabbis had as disciples, with people who went to them and said, I have studied, I have spent all this time, I know your teachings, and I want to know more about them, and I want you to let me be one of your disciples. So that's what they're expecting. What they get, well, you know how the disciple, they don't get that. They get these rough-edged, very spectrum. Like, you got a zealot and a tax collector trying to make friends in the early days of Jesus's ministry. Probably had some rough moments, and these are the people who show up at this wedding. So it's like a table and a half extra people. So if you've ever been in a wedding, planned a wedding, had a wedding, you know that you plan everything. You coordinate, you calculate, you get your RSVPs. And this is a family who's trying to honor God. They're trying to show their friends and family how blessed they are by God. And, the numbers are off a little, but they think, you know what, we can adjust for that. It's fine. We got this. It'll be fine. Ceremony, beautiful. Goes really well. Now we're into the later part of the wedding. We've had our toast. We've had dances. We're eating. We're enjoying. And they start looking at the numbers again and go, we're about to run out of wine, and we're not done with this party yet. So Mary, wanting the perfect wedding for all of her female family members, goes to Jesus like, hey, this it needs to be perfect, and they're running out of wine, and we're not done you can't go up to that guest who's like, oh, I would like another glass of wine, and say, yeah, I'm going to cut you off. You've had too many already. Well, that doesn't work. You can't say that. No, you can't. We're ending the party. No, we don't want to do that. So there's not really a good way to save face and run out of wine at the same time. It's not pretty. And like, oh, I'm so blessed by God, except we ran out of things and had to end early and say no and have limits. And this is supposed to be abundance. And so Jesus says, no, I'm not going to do it. Mary doesn't pay any attention to that. She's already saying, hey, come here. Get some servants. And says, do whatever he tells you to do. And so he's like, you want me to fix the wine problem? fine. I'll fix it. I will fix the wine problem. And so the servants, they trust Mary because she's got some authority from the family. Otherwise, they'd have been like, no, unless it's our boss, we're not going to. And so now they're looking at Jesus like, okay, what are we going to do to fix this problem? And it gets a little dicey because now Jesus says, see that room over there? We're going to go in there and we're going to use that stuff. And that room and that stuff isn't just like going to the kitchen, opening up the pantry. No, this is a very specific space for things that are used for high holy days, for the festivals like Passover and all of these very ceremonial things. And so these aren't daily use. These aren't even wedding use. Like wedding, like you use your fine stuff, but this is even finer than that, right? And so if these servants like were self-preservation at all, they would have said, no, we can use anything else in this house, but anything that's in that room. So the fact that they go with him and he says, see those jars, those pots, these are like barrels, right? They hold like 20 to 30 gallons. And he points at them and says, see those 6 barrels? We're going to fill those with water. If these servants did not trust Jesus, they would have said no. But they didn't say no. So I have a theory that as Jesus is growing up, they have their family functions. We know that they were very close with all the different families because we have the story from when he was 12 and Mary thought he was with him and Joseph thought he was with her. They both thought family was taking care of everybody. And so Jesus growing up probably performed miracles because, well, Mary knew he could fix the problem. We know he could fix the problem. He can make things out of nothing. So Mary already knows that because she's seen it. And these servants trust Jesus with this family's ceremonial cleanliness required things. Like this is like basically going into a sink in a clean room and saying, we're going to fill these sinks with water. But if those sinks get dirty, nothing else that's required for ceremonial cleanliness can ever be clean, right? And we know the Passover is like a few weeks away, like 2 or 3 weeks, which they'll need. So they're going to need this stuff in 2 or 3 weeks. Jesus says, we're going to use it now. And they say, okay. I think that if Jesus is performing miracles for anybody, it's the nameless, it's the storyless, it's these people like servants that even if they told somebody their story, it wouldn't get written down. It wouldn't be viable testimony. And why would they share it? It'd be just for them, right? And so I think he's already performed miracles for these guys, right? I think they know they can trust him to do something to make this wedding perfect. So they do it. They fill these ceremonial cleanliness vessels that are holding the water that's supposed to clean everything else. So they we want to fill them? We fill them. Have you ever done that little experiment with a penny and you put water droplets on it until it breaks over the edge? Like they fill these jars. They're full. And so you're one of these guys, you've finished filling that last one. You're like, okay, what are we going to do next? And Jesus is like, grabs the ladle from the Passover punch bowl and takes some of that water, hands it to one of them and says, take this to the MC. Servant goes, that is not water anymore. Looks at the rest of them. And I'm pretty sure that all 6 of these 20 to 30 gallon pots, barrels, is now wine. I'm pretty sure he just changed all of it all at once. And so if you're that servant, you just finished filling all of them. There's 6 of that took a while. You're holding this ladle and you're looking at it. It's wine. You look at Jesus and go, yeah, I should have seen that coming. Should that okay, yeah, sure, of course. Now taking this to the MC means taking it to the master of ceremony, the wedding coordinator slash DJ slash the guy who's in the middle of the currently ongoing party to get his approval to now serve this wine, which you probably have already done this a couple times throughout the evening because you would have done that with the very first glass because it's just this abundance celebrating thing of saying, is this appropriate to serve to my guests? And the MC would take it and say, yes, that first glass of wine is perfect. It's beautiful. It's great. Serve the guest. And then later on, as everybody's had a few, they're like if you've ever done a wine tasting, you're not going to do the wine tasting after you've already had something to drink. You start there so you can appreciate it. You go on a wine tour, you end up buying a really expensive bottle of wine at the end because it was amazing. You go back home, you try it, and it's not as good as you remember. Right? That's we know that happens. Like none of these guests are surprised. The MC has already gone and gotten the next round of saying, "Hey, are they far enough gone that they won't taste the difference between that and this?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, you're good." Did they do that 2 times, 3 times, however many times, they get a little cheaper throughout the evening because save money, make happy people, works out. And so now they walk up, and if you're the MC at nearing the end of this party, like it's close to over, you know you've already hit the bottom level of wine because all of that was pre-planned anyway. So you know you've gone through all of them, and they come up to you with another one saying, "Hey, is this appropriate to serve?" And you're thinking, you've got one even cheaper. What is it, vinegar? And you taste it, and it is so much better than the first glass of wine that you served. You are very confused. And you're going to take yourself a moment and go look back at your list, review all the different expectations of when things you thought were going to happen. And you're like, yeah, it happened about like we thought it would. And go, if this is the one we started with, and this is the one you're bringing me now, something went wrong. Were we not supposed to serve the last one we served? Like, was that supposed to not go out on the floor? Because it's not like it was that bad, but I mean, if we were supposed to start with that, like he's trying to run through all of this in his mind. And he's like, okay, maybe they thought they'd end it with a bang and end it with the really good one. That's just not logical because they're not going to be able to appreciate it. He knows that these people are not going to taste the nuance in this wine. And he's like, okay, I need a tactful way to ask what is up. So he calls the groom over. Okay, everyone goes, oh, look, the MC is calling the groom over. What's happening next? So the groom's like, what's up? Thinking, did he not was there was something else on the list that he was supposed to do because he thought he was done. Let's be honest. Everybody's like, there's another thing. Surprise! There's a surprise thing. And now you're the MC going, oh no. They're all looking. Okay, now I gotta be real tactful. Got nothing. There's no way to be polite about this. So he asked the groom. So in a kind of statement slash question format of, we all know that we're drinking cheaper wine already. So why would you save the best for last? That's crazy, right? Yeah. No. And the groom looks at him and goes, what? MC looks back at the groom and goes, what? 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 And they're just looking at each other. Both of them are now confused. And that's where the story ends. It just drops out. And you don't get to know what happened. But let's be honest. Okay, let's do the math. If you've got 6 barrels of wine near the end of a party where the people are already far enough in that they can't tell the difference between good and bad, they're not going to drink very much of that. The party's almost over. So they all go home happy, having a few glasses of this amazing wine, having no idea. And these servants now are going, okay, we've still got like 6 3/4 worth of wine in the ceremonial cleansing pots that we need to use in about 2 or 3 weeks. And they're probably ceramic of some kind of pottery, whether it was glazed or just double fired. Who knows? They were only designed to carry water. And wine will stain ceramic. That's why you use glass. So now you've got. So let's just say they're like, okay, we've got a plan. We'll put this wine back into the containers that we got the wine from the vineyard, right? We worked out a deal with the winery. They're supposed to come pick these up tomorrow, but we kind of need them. So we'll empty. And so let's say they even managed to empty them. Well, now they're still stained red. Why would Jesus do that? Why would Jesus take something and get it dirty, right? Well, we're going to start digging into the different festival symbols and lead up into the Passover that will come next spring that these people are about to step into in their new life as a married couple. Wine, we find out in the Last Supper, Jesus reveals to them it is the symbol of blood. It's a symbol of sacrifice. And it would have been part of the sacrificial system. You could offer animals, drink, bread, like there's a bunch of different stuff. And so Jesus is this super dramatic symbolism of staining this family friend at their wedding, like for symbolism and really no other purpose other than to frustrate them over the next several years until they make the connection of what Jesus has done and his crucifixion and resurrection to go, oh, it was maybe for all we know, their whole lives, they don't know why that happened, why Jesus did that. And so here we are going, that's the only reason he was excessive and showed abundance. Like, okay, and it's not like they can do anything. Like, what do you do? Like, this is 600 bottles worth of wine, somewhere between 500 and 600 bottles of wine. One family who's not owning a vineyard, they're not a winery, now has a whole store with Jesus wine. What do you do with that? I don't know. And there's just, I guess they would use it for the rest of their lives, give it away as gifts to friends. But if you're the local winery, you're like, who'd you get it from? What kind of back sideways deals do you like? I thought we were your supplier. What is like there's so many, this is a story that leaves us with so many more questions than answers, and I love it. Um, and so I will end with one more fun visual connection for why I think Jesus would do that. If you go into Old Testament and you go into the sacrifice stuff, there's a recipe for soap. It's just a very straightforward lye soap recipe that you would have used to wash your hands to prepare for the sacrifices. So the priests, Levites, all of those people, like this would have been something that they were supposed to use according to that recipe. My guess is that over the years they omitted at least one ingredient because even though I've looked at online to see what other people think that ingredient does, I'm pretty sure that no one likes the what I think is the real answer. There is a red dye ingredient in this soap. I think God intended for their hands to be dyed red, to be permanently reminded every day that they're making sacrifices of how extreme it is to need it, how extreme it is to be forgiven by God, that they would have their own hands stained as if by blood. So here you have these 6 ceramic jars stained because God wants us to remember how extreme what he did was. And if that's not the most dramatic thing you can think of, I don't know. I just think it's pretty crazy. Anyway, hopefully I'll post again soon. We'll see where we go next. Uh, yeah. Bye.